Welcome to Season 2 of The Rise of Mzilikazi. The Rise of Mzilikazi, Season 2, Episode 1, Beyond Zululand, The Birth of a New Nation. The stage is set for Mzilikazi's next great chapter. The year was likely early 1821. This marked not only the end of Mzilikazi's chapter as a Zulu vassal, but the beginning of an extraordinary odyssey. No longer merely a chief, he was now a fugitive commander, leading a compact, mobile band, determined to rise anew. His exile would become a migration. His migration would become a kingdom. The stage is set for a new era. After his escape from Zululand, Mzilikazi traversed the mountain passes of the Drakensberg, entering the highveld beyond the reach of Shaka's armies. The first major stop in this migration was a settlement led by Nyoka near the Mkuze River. Oral traditions recount that upon approaching this settlement, Mzilikazi, adhering to custom, dispatched a delegation of warriors to negotiate for temporary shelter and provisions. However, Nyoka, likely unnerved by the growing reputation of Mzilikazi's military power and the widespread instability of the era, viewed the newcomers with suspicion. Rather than extending hospitality or even a firm refusal, Nyoka took a provocative and fateful step. He had Mzilikazi's emissaries captured and bound. This breach of diplomatic protocol signaled clear hostility. When news of his envoy's fate reached Mzilikazi, his quest for aid turned to retribution. A second, more formidable force was sent, not for negotiation, but for war. The resulting conflict was swift and brutal. Nyoka's people were decisively defeated by the superior military tactics of Mzilikazi's warriors. This was a crucial move that allowed Mzilikazi to resupply his people with food and livestock. The raid on Nyoka's settlement reflects the realities of the time, a retaliatory strike born from failed diplomacy. This kind of conflict wouldn't be the last in Mzilikazi's nation-building journey. The highveld held larger ambitions for the still fugitive leader. The group that left Zululand with Mzilikazi was relatively small at first, perhaps around 500 people, but they were a determined core, the surviving elite warriors, trusted advisors, and their families. These were not just followers bound by circumstance. They were the committed founders of a new future. Among the prominent clans and lineages that made up this founding core were, of course, the Kumalo, forever linked to Mzilikazi's lineage. But there were others who cast their lot with him, each adding their unique history and strength. There were the Mate, Matema, and Mafu clans whose members would become key advisors and military leaders. The Machazi, Mzizi, Gumede, Makwelo, Mbele, Mkwananzi, and Mabena, and members of the Sitole clan. Also, individuals connected to other Nguni lineages would be a part of this early migration, including the lineages of Masuku, Fuyane, Matetwa, and Tebe clans. These are but some of the early clans that left Zululand with Mzilikazi, and would be later referred to as the people of the South, or Abantu Basezansi. Indeed, more clans would become part of this burgeoning nation in the interior of the Transvaal, as we shall later see. Significantly, there were the Ndiweni people, carrying with them not only their connection through Tsikose to Mzilikazi, but also a remarkable origin story of their own. Legend tells that the name Ndiweni originated centuries earlier within the Zwide clan, when twin sons were born, a deeply significant event. Traditional ritual decreed that one must be killed, but the mother hid the child who was meant to die inside a clay pot at Ndiweni. His aunts then helped the child escape. From that child, hidden in a pot and saved, a new lineage emerged, carrying the name Ndiweni. This lineage, born of survival and defiance, would become one of the founding pillars of Mzilikazi's new kingdom. These were clans bound not just by shared geography, but by the shared experiences of war, and by a collective hunger for a future they could define entirely on their own terms, free from the shadows of Zwide and Shaka. As Mzilikazi's group moved steadily northward into the vast interior plateau, they did not remain isolated. Their journey became a magnet for others. Fugitives fleeing the relentless expansion and campaigns of the Zulu kingdom, former Ndwandwe loyalists left stateless after Zwide's fall, and wandering families displaced by the region's turmoil all began to seek security and opportunity under Mzilikazi's strong leadership. Among those who joined were the Dlodlo clan, themselves fleeing conflict, and remnants of various Ndwandwe-affiliated clans such as the Nesumalo, Simela, Mhlanga, Chabalala, and Dlamini. As time went on, this emerging kingdom beyond the mountains would be joined by a significantly larger number of clans. The community growing around Mzilikazi was becoming a unique coalition, a convergence of multiple bloodlines, different historical identities, and past allegiances, all now being reshaped and unified under a new center of gravity. Observing the growing migration, key advisors spoke. Gwabalanda Mate, his voice thoughtful, remarked, "So many pasts behind us." Mkumbata Kakolo, his voice resolute, replied, "And one future. This is no longer a march of survivors. This is the procession of founders." Back in Zululand, King Shaka did not unleash the full might of his army in immediate, sustained pursuit of Mzilikazi. Why he didn't remains a subject of historical debate and speculation. Some believe he was too preoccupied with consolidating his vast, newly formed empire and integrating conquered peoples. Others suggest he genuinely saw Mzilikazi's departure as the conclusion of the conflict, a problem removed from his immediate territory. And still others whisper that Shaka, in his own complex way, recognized a fellow force of nature in Mzilikazi and perhaps even allowed him to leave, understanding that their destinies had diverged beyond reconciliation. Perhaps Shaka, with his own profound understanding of power and ambition, understood that certain forms of greatness simply could not be contained within the boundaries of a single throne or kingdom. As Mzilikazi's group reached the highveld of the interior plateau, they faced entirely new challenges. The terrain was unfamiliar, vastly different from the coastal lands they knew. They encountered local tribes and chiefdoms with their own established leaders and ways of life, leading to inevitable conflicts and negotiations, and the constant threat of starvation, disease, or ambush in the vast, unknown territory was ever present. But Mzilikazi was not simply leading a group of people. He was actively shaping them into a cohesive unit. A nascent state, He had been forged in hardship and refined in the crucible of Zulu military discipline. By his side were the men who would become the pillars of this new kingdom, forming its government, its military council, and its spiritual heart. Dambisa Mahubo Mafu, known for his unwavering discipline and courage in the face of adversity. Mahabahaba Mkwananzi, a fierce warrior whose presence steadied many during uncertain times. There was Mkatika Tebe, skilled in navigating the unfamiliar terrain and executing tactical retreats when necessary. Then there was Gwabalanda Mate, who served as both spiritual advisor and a shrewd political seer. Mkumbata Kakolo, a former advisor who had served even Shaka, now instrumental in shaping the policy and beliefs of the new state. And Kondwane Ndiweni, Mzilikazi's maternal uncle, whose presence symbolized the important Ndiweni bloodline. These were more than just a war council. They were the functional government of the emerging state, adapting the organizational principles learned in Zululand to the challenges of their new environment. The journey was long and the challenges immense, and the emerging kingdom would continue to move and evolve, facing further trials and triumphs. Mzilikazi's trajectory would soon bring him into direct contact with the Transvaal and Ndebele, specifically Nzunza and Manala clans.